Hello, and welcome to Trying Times, the show where we talk about life and just some of the things that might happen in it, or at least have happened in mine, and a lot of those involve trying times. Very clever title, I know. You don't gotta tell me. I know. I start every episode out with this very general sort of elevator pitch, so today's is gonna happen right now, okay? Just let me engage my customer service voice very quickly here. Hi there, my name is Carmen. I'm a creative in my mid 20s who loves all things arts, food, and film. That was not like the most greatest. That was not the best one I've ever done, but it's still counts, so it's fine. It was very pointed to what today's episode is going to be about, and what that is hobbies and time. Two topics that sound pretty far apart, but are actually more interconnected than you would think. As we think about these two concepts and how they go together, time goes on. So I don't think I really got to explain that to you. I think that's kind of just something we all know. As time goes on, we get older. It's a pretty essential concept that we live through and know about in life. So as life goes on, we are dealt with different situations, right? Different responsibilities, and a lot of that can include exploration as to what we as people enjoy and what we don't enjoy. So sometimes when you think about how as a kid you may have liked to play certain games, for instance like House or Doctor, those kinds of imaginative games that a lot of kids play or used to play. I don't know if kids do now because now they have technology and they don't. I don't know. I don't want to get too into that. That's a whole separate thing, but when I was younger, those are the kinds of games that a lot of kids would play, a lot of imaginative games, and sometimes those can include interests that span out across your life and can lead into your future, whether that's as a career choice, your choice in studies, if that's something you're interested in, or even potentially your hobbies as a whole. So as a kid myself, I loved playing house. You basically pretend in this game that you're running your own household. Sometimes you might have a significant other, you might have kids, whatever it is. I loved playing house really just for the reason that I got to pretend I was baking. And that's sort of a hobby that stuck with me till now. Although now at 25, I don't pretend I'm baking. Like I actually bake, of course. And I've always enjoyed this. And what I find interesting is that was something as a kid I just loved to pretend doing. And as I began to get older, I realized more and more that when I felt very stressed or sometimes frustrated or just overwhelmed, that's when I most enjoyed going to baking as a hobby. And it kind of changes my mood and my environment to feel better. And that's something that I find very interesting because I wonder if it maybe takes me in part to a simpler time where there's no worries, you're younger, so there's no stresses, just a happy place overall, or something else maybe. And I'm not by any means like a psychologist or a therapist. I could be very wrong in that assumption that I'm making right now, but it is also quite fascinating to me to be able to link those two and really think about how that's grown to change over time. And so, yeah, what was once a game later on became an actual hobby and I guess a coping mechanism for stress for me. So I think overall with that example, it's kind of easy to see how we kind of grow and how as we do grow, that things that we once liked do start to change naturally, whether it's a minor change or a significant one. Our taste kind of becomes a little bit more acquired and evolves from what it once was. So there are things that I was interested in and now I'm not interested in them at all, or at least not actually like doing them now. For instance, this is a great example. I don't really even know if I want to share it, but I used to, like when I was younger, I was in dance for a little while, hip hop in case you were wondering, and I loved it so much. We were definitely out here learning how to pop and lock at 11 years old, but it's whatever. So no, now, don't get me wrong. I don't think back on that and I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. I look back on that and I'm just like, I was very grateful that I was in a position where I was able to be placed in that kind of a class and able to be placed in that sort of an extracurricular activity, because at the time that felt like something that was a really wonderful creative outlet for me as a kid. And it was something that thankfully I was able to actually be part of for a little while. Now, like, I'm still amazed when I see videos of groups of dancers just kind of, or even just like a dancer, like a person in general, put on a really cool and intricate routine. But it's not necessarily something that now when I see, I'm like, oh, I want to do that in my spare time. Or like, oh, I want to do that all the time. Like, it's not really like that. Now it's, do I even really, like, I dance a lot, like when I'm like on my own. And I mean, I'm not like a fan of clubs or anything. So like, I don't really count that as like dancing. Like, go to concerts and stuff like that. It was like, oh, that was such a good time. And you just dance with all your friends and you have a good time. It feels so far away now. I'm just like, I haven't been to a concert since 2019. That was 3 years ago. God, it's so sad. But I don't know. I think now there's like this era of TikTok dances where it's just like a person almost being, and I don't mean for this to sound offensive, but it's almost like a person being very stiff on screen for some reason when they dance, like just very sharp with their movements. And it almost makes me kind of uneasy. So I don't know, like when I see that, I can't really be bothered to be part of that, really. Like, I don't care for it. If you have the confidence within that and enjoy that, then fully do it up, and all the power to you. I think that's incredible. But for me, it's just not that anymore. So I think that's another great example of how tastes, at least for myself in my life, have changed and can change and evolve over time, to showcase the ways in which interests can stick with you, sometimes more or less, or sometimes fade away altogether. I don't know why I just thought about this person, but he popped into my head. I was trying to think of examples of, like, I guess TikTok dancers or whatever you would want to call them. And instead, this person popped into my head, and I never get tired of seeing his videos, and he's not at all, like, I don't, like, not stiff with movement. But Casey Frey, guys, this guy's been around since, like, Vine, if not before. I don't know, but he's just, like, the funniest dude. Also, like, just such a sick dancer overall. So, yeah, I never get tired of seeing him. But that's all just dancing. Anyways, as a kid, and just like as a person generally, I was always interested in some kind of art, or the arts generally. And clearly, like, I'm talking about different things right now, but that never really changed. But the degree of how much I like certain things over other things has evolved quite a bit. So, when I was a kid, I loved drawing and painting and would jump at the chance to create something. And now I do still love that, but it's not as prevalent for me as it was before. Is that even the word? I think that's the word. Now, what I enjoy more so, I guess, if I like look to doing something fun in my spare time, is like filming and editing and playing around with footage. So it's a different kind of creation and playing around with art mediums, but it's kind of just like changed and evolved a little bit over time. And I still love to paint, don't get me wrong, but it's nowhere near as often as I used to. And I don't turn to it the way that I once did, and so forth. So I find that a lot of that changes over time, or it has for me especially. And obviously, I mean, I was born in 1996, so like I grew up very much with this evolution of technology that was very significant in our society and culture and everything. And so I got to grow up at an interesting time where I had a lot more, I guess, options available in terms of hobbies and spare time and entertainment that didn't just involve necessarily like watching a movie or something. Like, I could get into it so heavy, but I won't, because that's not what I'm trying to say here. But like, we had Tamagotchis, and then we had obviously like Barbie dolls and all that kind of thing. Like, I loved that growing up. But then there was Tamagotchis, there was like Game Boy, there was the Nintendo DS, there was all these different things coming out. And so there were so many different things that I could turn to for fun, and feel very grateful to have had and still have. I still have my Nintendo DS. I need to get a charger for it though. I can't find the plug for it, but it does still work, and I really want to play on it again. I remember loving it so much, and I know I still would. But so, I don't know. I find right now, at least, push that aside. During this time, especially with all of the on and off lockdowns, I've found myself almost feeling a little hobby-less at times, if that makes sense. Like just lacking in hobbies or maybe interest, I guess is a way to put it. So I find like during this time, I've explored a lot of the hobbies I've always known to love and enjoy. So, like I said, baking and painting and editing and all those things. And now I've gotten a little more into crocheting and this podcasting world. But I don't think my attention span is totally what it once was. So, with that, I find myself lacking a lot of patience, which is obviously just utterly frustrating because it makes everything feel like a task. Even if it's something you're just doing to relieve stress or whatever, like everything just feels like a task. And then if I ever go out to like a store or a mall or something, I notice immediately that people also seem quite impatient or in a rush a lot of the time too. And that just makes me feel really sad. I'm like laughing about it, but it does make me feel really sad because it's created this cold, very closed off demeanor. Like no one tolerates anyone anymore. And it's just sad to see. I feel like the topic of what I was talking about just went from like, la, like kids, like living in like a happy, upbeat world to like, boom, today's day and age, no one cares anymore. It's not even that. I also realize like I'm comparing two very extreme times to each other. And like, I'm also very much in adulthood now. So like, you realize a lot more now than you might at like 16. You know what I mean? I've realized a lot of that specifically after all the lockdowns have happened. And it kind of makes me check myself a little bit more and then push myself to be a little more patient and just to be better as a person rather than trying to, like if I feel impatient, just like acting out on it. Like, I don't think anyone can fully control their mood 1,000% of the time. That's totally fine. That's normal. If you could control it all the time, it would actually be a little concerning, but I obviously can't. So like sometimes if I feel impatient, then I can't help it. But I want to say like 99% of the time, out of 100% of the time, I do really try to control it and just be a little more patient and whatnot. And so I guess like by doing that, it feels also a little humbling. I've 110% never been one, I'm throwing statistics out here like it's legit, but I've never been one to ever think higher of myself compared to anyone else. But this is a really good reminder anytime I just kind of see the state of the world right now to just chill. No one's more important than the next person. We're literally all the same. Like in my mind, everyone's just kind of at the same plateau or at the same peak. It's like not here nor there though. So that's a thought that I just kind of keep recycling in a way. But back to hobbies. I'm like off on so many tangents today. I don't know how, but I want to know like if you have found that difficult for yourself too lately, or if you think that COVID has maybe made you lose a little interest in your hobbies or exhaust your hobbies while coping with the pandemic. And do you at all find that you might be finding it a little harder to focus on a hobby or even a task generally? I just want to know if it's maybe me that's feeling that or maybe someone else feels that way too, because I know my attention span has lessened so heavily, and all I can really think about is like we all went from socializing like crazy to all these things, or maybe not everyone, but I was socializing quite a bit. I was out and about quite a bit, and then the pandemic happened, and then I was inside a lot, and my social meter kind of went down, and I didn't really feel, the greatest throughout a lot of it, and I don't think a lot of people did either. And then in the midst of that, we were left to our own devices, mine being Netflix, YouTube, Disney Plus, TikTok, all of these things where there's just so much content to be absorbed, so many things that can influence you, but also at your own free will, I guess. So like you can click on things, or if you're not interested, just click out, doesn't matter. Like, you just go in and out of whatever you want, and it doesn't, like, no one's standing there telling you have to watch this. If you're scrolling through TikTok, this is a new feature I think we're now, well, not super new, but it's a recent feature where TikToks can be up to 3 minutes, I believe. And so, like, sometimes if you're scrolling through, those 3-minute ones sometimes for some reason will feel like they're 10 minutes, or at least for me. And I'm just like, oh my God, I never noticed my attention span ever being like this before. And so, yeah, I don't know. I would love to know if that's kind of just like something that someone else feels too, because I was really in my head about it for a while, and I know it's not just me. So yeah, like I kind of said, even just through that, like another solid example being film watching. You can kind of watch whatever you want, whenever you want. I got very much into the habit of that. So I went to the theaters once, like the movie theaters once in the last 2 years. It was actually like a few months ago, and then they ended up closing the theaters here again. And I was like, great. I still haven't seen Spider-Man. I'm recording this in February. I'm not sure when you'll be hearing this, but it came out like a minute ago and I still haven't seen it. So that's besides the point. It is really sad to think about, though. I haven't been to the theaters at all. The last thing I did go to the theaters to see was Dune, because I didn't want to miss that. And it was a great movie, but since it was about 2 hours, give or take, in length, I had, I guess, leading up to that, gotten so accustomed to watching Netflix or Disney Plus or anywhere, like I said earlier, that you can stream. And I feel like I got so used to pausing and then getting up and like getting water, or if someone calls, you can just pause and chat on the phone if you want to. Just that sort of freedom in watching. There was no rush and especially no etiquette in that. And so I'm that person where when I go to a theater, my phone is off and I'm giving my full undivided attention, like most other people would. I found it so tough after that much time had passed to really focus. And I didn't want that to be shady towards like the movie, because it was great and there was so much to note in it and so much to take in and see. But I just struggled so hard to focus, and I found that really quite sad, to be honest, because I'm like, I've never felt this way in a movie before. I've watched my fair share of very lengthy movies, and I've never struggled like that before. So that was kind of an interesting observation for me. I don't know, this pandemic really shook the world to its core in a million different ways, at the very least. And I wonder if anyone else finds this difficult too, because it's just like, it feels so weird to me to not be patient all the time, but especially with the things that I used to have so much patience to sit and watch, it's like that's kind of gone, and I'm trying really hard to get that back. And so, yeah, is this something that has been a struggle for you? Or just something else at all? Like, is your attention span, maybe with movies it's good, but with something else it's just like you found it's lessened so much? Or if maybe your attention span wasn't very strong to begin with, has this made it a little bit harder for you? Like, I really want to know. So if that's something that you're open to chatting about, or like you felt you could relate to, let me know by commenting if that's a feature on your listening platform that you're listening to this on right now, or shoot me a message on Instagram. My username is at I'm Carmen Kang. So that's IMCARMENKANG. I look forward to chatting. And all in all, thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, seriously, thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you. So, yeah, actually, if your attention span was long enough to let you listen to me talking about attention spans, oh my God, you deserve a gold medal. Please feel free to like this episode or follow the show if you've enjoyed it at all, and we'll chat next time, okay? I'll see you soon. Bye.